Hey kids, welcome into a vintage edition of A Dead Man's Books. Last episode, we talked about Bill Landry's one-man play, Einstein the Man. We talked about a whole lot of different topics with that. We even talked to Albert Einstein himself and just talked about how Bill Landry's done so much that we are familiar with the Heartland series, with some of his books that he's written. He's had a lot of speaking tours throughout the state and throughout Appalachia. But really the thing that came before all of that was his life in theater and his writing of this play, Einstein the Man. Way back in December, we had the privilege to sit down and talk to Bill Landry via Zoom about his book, Appalachian Tales and Heartland Adventures, and also about his book, Telling It for the Truth. But also we talked about really just his life in general. He told us about his college days at UTC, how he went to get his master's in theater out in Texas, and then how he came back and was a part of the theater department at Roane State and Walter State. He wrote a play at Roane State called We the Principal People, and then he came to Oak Ridge, to the National Lab at Oak Ridge, and they had this idea for this play that Albert Einstein would teach kids about science. So Bill took on that charge, and he sat down and he talked about science with the scientists there, some who maybe even interacted with Albert Einstein. Here's the thing, like I said, we talked to Bill Landry way back when, and he talked about Einstein the Man. So, in a first ever vintage throwback, I thought it would be really cool to have the segment where he talks about Einstein the Man. He talks about his life in theater, and also he's going to talk about an incident that happened while he was a part of a theater troupe with UTC called the Harlequins, when they went into a neighborhood that they probably shouldn't have ventured towards, and he's going to kind of talk about that for a minute. So, without further ado, on again, vintage throwback ADMB, here is Bill Landry talking about Einstein the Man.
In your book, you talk about how when you first started the Heartland series, you reference Wiley Oakley and how he had a certain, I guess, way of telling a story. And I know that you had said that you had kind of like envisioned doing your own version of Wiley Oakley while you told these stories. How long did you keep that up the entire time, or did you just like
if you listen to the pilot show, you will hear a little bit of mountain drawl that, maybe was a little bit more of an actor than Bill Landry. And it was an actor who was stumbling around trying to find who to be as he's introducing you to this story. Now, this first story is only 4 minutes long, and there's 2,000 that are going to come later. But you didn't know anything about any of those 2,000 shows. All you know is you're standing there looking at a camera, and you're talking about the mountain guide and storyteller with the soul of a poet, Wiley Oak, climbed the ridge, found the great Smoky Mountains. And Wiley Oakley was our host. He was the introduction to the region. Wiley Oakley, he's not a con man. He was a humorist. Wiley was a guy that was a mountain guide and a storyteller, period. He was a singer. He was a talker. He was a humorist. He was a con man. But you know, he'd collect 5 people on a corner in Gatlinburg, and they'd say, "Yeah, can you show us the mountains?" Yeah, he's a real mountain man. And Wiley Oakley, he'd find a balsam. He'd take his bunch up there to the Gatlinburg, and they'd get up to Indian Gap, and the boys say, "Oh, Wiley, we sure are hungry." Wiley said, "Well, okay, well, let's dig us up some balsam taters." And balsam taters, yeah, wow, real mountain man. What's a balsam tater? Well, these balsam trees, if you come up here at night, maybe with some Idaho potatoes and stick them under there, and then you get 5 or 6 tourists, instead of giving you a quarter tip, they may give you 50 cents if you give them a balsam tater and think you're really something. But I mean, that's the kind of humor. These were sophisticated people, and they knew what they were doing, and they were successful at it. If you can start with that kind of a baseline and love what you're doing and love these people, and they'll open the doors for you and feed you and take care of you and do everything you need done. Everything.
You talk about your inspiration for finding your voice as the narrator for the Heartland series. And that was one of my questions early on, was like, your voice and your way of storytelling feels just unmistakable to somebody like us now. But that presence didn't just happen. I never knew that you were into theater. I never knew that you were into drama or any of that. But then in reading your book, you had talked about how a friend had gotten you to join a Shakespeare production when you were at UTC. Do you remember what that production was?
As You Like It.
As You Like, and a comedy. Perfect.
I was the youngest son of Roland Du Bois. I played Oliver, the youngest son of Roland Du Bois. And I was playing football at UTC at the time. And the quarterback, who was an All-American, Roger Caterino, bless his heart, he was terrific. And his brother was a stand-up comedian. I think in the North, Philadelphia, maybe somewhere. But Roger the Dodger was terrific. And come on, let's go up here. He said, "Come with me." And because we went to church together, because he was a Catholic. Roger talked me into going, and he just said, "Come with me." And I went and sat there and listened to Dorothy Hackett Ward, the theater department, talk about the theater. And we had a big All-American tackle. He played Charles, the wrestler. There's a scene in As You Like It, and he always would say, he said, "What's the new news at the court?" King would say. And Charles would say, "No news but the old news." That was Carl. That was Carlson. That was his line. "No news but the old news, sire."
And then you went on to pursue your master's in, did you say that your master's was in theater as well, performing arts?
Yeah. Well, what I did, well, my freshman year, I was playing football and on a football scholarship, and I ended up in that play and was in every play they did later after that, with Jim Lewis and the beginning of the Harlequins. And Dorothy Hackett Ward, my teacher, was a terrific Yale-educated artist and terrific lady and super person. The theater's named after her. And she had us doing plays all around town all summer for 2 years. And that's when we got in that riot. But that was the beginning of the theater. And then I went on to graduate school in the theater in Dallas, Texas. I went to the Dallas Theater Center for 2 years. And then I came back to Tennessee, and I taught at Roane State Community College, and I taught at Walter State Community College, and I taught at Morristown and Oak Ridge, and then got a job doing Einstein. And then the Einstein thing was just the Museum of Science and Energy. This is 1977. They had a theater Oak Ridge and the Oak Ridge Museum, they had a big theater. It's 300 seats, but they never used it for theater. It was always for lectures or science programs or utility, the energy programs with your hair stands up on end and everything. And that's the company, the group, Oak Ridge, that hired me to do promotion and publicity for the museum while all this was bouncing around. Bill's trying to find a way to make a living and feed his family. And so I was teaching where I could, and Oak Ridge wanted to promote the science and art of theater. They wanted really to do science, but the public understanding of science is what we were into. And the public understanding of science required that you explain these things. And I thought, let's do it through theater. And so one of my ideas to get this job was that I said, I thought that Oak Ridge is one place in the world that you could do it, the life and work of Albert Einstein, and teach it. And you've got to, if you approach it through the humanities and the personal side, you can make it theatrical and tell the information, but you can do it in such a way by showing his humanity. You can teach the science. You can get the science in. You can teach relativity. You can say something about, electromagnetic fields and light and time. Einstein would always say it's much better to have tried to do something and fail than not to try. So, I mean, as far as the information, I had no fear about relativity or physics that I had no experience in at all. But when I was 24, working on this, that we started working on this Einstein idea. So really the idea was, if there's one place in the world you could do a one-man play about Albert Einstein, Oak Ridge, Tennessee would be the place. And they had a 300-seat theater, never been used. I mean, what's there to lose? I thought it was a chance to go to work. I just didn't know it was going to, last 20 years. And you just keep working. And so I ate lunch every day. One summer, I ate lunch with two theoretical physicists at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Richard Becker and C.K. Wong. These guys were super Einstein specialists. They were some of the best in the world. And they were my teachers, for God's sakes. I mean, it was amazing because we started working on this thing. I was 26, 24, and I'm working at Oak Ridge, and, the Spanish Hoffman and these terrific, important World War II scientists that were involved in the building of the atomic structures and things. And these guys were helping on this script. And then the Einstein estate let us, because we were working as a nonprofit and doing an educational program, they let us use all the Einstein words in the script. And then it didn't take me long to learn that being on the road wasn't what you want to be. That's not where you want to go. You talk to any musician, traveled for a couple of years, that's plenty. So it didn't take me long to want to get off the road. So I wanted to find a job that I could, live and go home every night, see my family. And I just walked in. Steve Dean hired me to be the Heartland guy, and we didn't know what the Heartland guy would be. I thought it was going to be Wiley Oakley. I thought I was going to be an actor playing this countryman, mountain man. So in those first couple of episodes, you might pick up a little mountain drawl that Bill's creating, trying to figure out what he's doing, because he don't know, because nobody had ever done it before.
That's a brilliant story about the Einstein the Man. I did not know any of that background to it, but it really I love how this is just aligning together. I know I do another show where we talk about plays that really ought to deserve a second spin in the classroom. And I would love to find a way to get my hands on a copy of Einstein the Man, or even your other play. You had written one for the bicentennial about the history of Roane County, Tennessee, I think.
Yeah.
How do we find those?
Well, that's the name of that play is We the Principal People. We the Principal People premiered in 1977, I think, at Roane State Community College. Yeah, and they have that script is in the library there. That's a good script. That script was a year in working on it, and We the Principal People was about the founding of Roane County and who lived there and what they did and how it came to be. More riverboat pilots came from Kingston, Tennessee than any place in America. It's certainly any place on the Tennessee River. Kingston was a riverboat town. And Harriman was where you didn't drink. Couldn't drink in Harriman because they passed the law saying if the land is ever sold liquor in the city proper, the land would revert back to its original owner. That's kind of interesting.
It was a lot different as far as the drinking went when I was living in Harriman. I'll say that.
So you came through Harriman too?
I lived there for 2 years. I was at Roane State for a couple of years. So I actually lived in Kingston. When you cross the Clinch right there, I lived right there at the base of the bridge. So I really enjoyed Kingston. It was a cool place. Since we're talking about the plays, and your theater background, I know in Telling It for the Truth, you talked about the riot that you'd mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I know in that book, you talked about 2 incidents that were like life shaping, because you talked about your canoe trip and then you talked about this riot. One thing that I thought was really interesting though, is you mentioned in the book that you thought that would be a really good documentary and you wanted to have the chance to talk to the people, I guess, who had kind of incited it. I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting when I was reading it, because I was thinking about, you guys came into that neighborhood to do something beneficial for the community, and it kind of went south. And there were like a lot of, you talked about your brother was injured. Just so many things had happened. But you still wanted the chance to sit down and talk to them about this. And I didn't know, like, what are some things that you would ask them if you had the chance to do that documentary?
That's what I wanted to find out. I wanted to know what happened. I can tell you what happened from my point of view and what happened to the people that I know about, and who got hurt, what happened, and how it went about, how it all transpired. What I don't know is what was the after effect. I know one of the guys that were involved violently died within a year. He was killed in a shooting or something, and I know his name or what they called him, but he was involved in this, and so many people were involved in that riot after the fact. What happened was 45 people were meeting there, and we were asked to leave, and we didn't leave, and they tore that down the set. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what happened. We should have left, but we weren't there to leave. We were there to do a show for children, and it's kind of like being in Minnesota today. It's a lot like that. Maybe if we weren't there, they wouldn't have a fight. Well, that's true, but we thought we had a right, or our teachers thought we had a right, or somebody who invited us there, or something. I don't. It's not part of my pay grade. I can't foresee that, but it was everybody that was involved in that from our group, the Harlequins. That was a UTC group of actors, women and men, age 16 to 24, doing these plays, 15 people. And we all got sent to the hospital that day, and we never forgot it. And we spent 2 months in court our senior year of college. So that was the education we got there.
Did you guys continue doing the Harlequins after that, or was it kind of hard to go back to do that once that had happened?
Oh, we didn't do much. That was when I graduated from UTC with my degree. That whole business, all that transpired with the Harlequin ended, as far as I know. I don't know what they did the next couple of years. I just completely took off and went to Texas and was in graduate school working on other plays and other shows, my degree. So that's what I was doing. I don't know how it all played out around here. I don't know what happened to the theater department. I kind of cut my ties with them for a while because I was working so hard trying to eat, trying to graduate.
Hey, I really appreciate your time. I was reading your book and you were talking about calling Jack Sharp, and there was a quote in there. You said, "I can't call Jack Sharp." And I told my wife when I read that, I said, I can't just up and call Bill Landry. So I really do appreciate the time that you've taken with us today.
Want to talk to Bill Landry? Call him up.
Well, I'll hold you up. I'll hold you up on that for sure.
If you need to say something to him, you better go ahead and call him up and say it.
Well, thank you for your time, and thanks for your patience with us, and thanks for doing it.
Take care.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey, if you're a fan of good conversations and fresh takes on literature and the kind of school stories that stick with you long after the bell rings, well, I've got a podcast for you. It's called With Honors, and it's where my high school students have taken the microphone, not just to analyze books or talk about our lessons, but to reflect on what we've learned this year, have conversations about what surprised them, how our literature and classroom experiences connect to their real lives. And we talk about everything from symbolism and Poe to the pros and cons of class pets, and all through the voices of smart, curious students who have learned to speak their minds. New episodes drop regularly every week, and every one is a snapshot of what it looks like when students take ownership of their own learning and have a little fun while they're at it. You can find With Honors on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel, so check them out.